Morant with a running start. Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! Oh, he hit it! John Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies lost their second preseason game. They fell to the Charlotte Hornets. This game had no Ja Morant, who has essentially been ruled out for all of preseason. We got that injury news a couple of days ago. So no Ja Morant, no Jaren Jackson Jr. Brandon Clark did not play in this game because of a sore knee, and the Grizzlies were a little bit shorthanded and did not defend well enough or take care of the basketball or be good enough on offense to get the victory. So on today's episode, we will talk about this game. Before we get to it, just a reminder, if you want to play fantasy basketball with me and other listeners, the signups are going on right now at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Last I checked, 32 people had signed up for the negative fantasy league. My goal is to get 40 people signed up. So we're 8 away. If you want to play in a negative fantasy basketball league, that's very, very fun. Do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. That's available to my supporters who are at the $5 a month tier or higher. If you join at that tier, you also can join my listener Slack channel and get a monthly bonus episode. So sign up over there, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, the Grizzlies started Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, John Conchar, Santi Aldama, and Zach Edey. I was happy to see them starting Conchar as opposed to Scottie Pippen Jr. With no Ja Morant, this is an opportunity for Scottie Pippen Jr. to play more. It shows his necessity to this roster. But I was firmly of the opinion that you can't start Scottie Pippen Jr. in the games where Ja Morant is out. My thinking was, if we're starting Scottie Pippen Jr. whenever Ja Morant misses a game, we're in trouble this season. I like Scottie Pippen Jr. There's an argument to be made. He might be the best player on a two-way contract in the NBA. But the idea of starting three guys, 6'3" and shorter, in Pippen and Smart and Bane does not seem like a winning formula to me. Also, it's of course exacerbated by the fact that there's no Vince Williams Jr. or Gigi Jackson. So maybe you think, all right, I'd rather see Scottie Pippen Jr. play than John Conchar or Jay Claravia. Not me. I want a normal-sized NBA lineup, and that's what they went with. Conchar got the nod over Jay Claravia. So your starters were Smart and Bane, who are the backcourt, who are handling, most ball handling duties. I know they're trying to spread it out a little bit. They've been doing that every season. That's not just this new offensive approach. Whoever gets the defensive rebound normally brings the ball up the court. But Bane and Smart started in the backcourt. I thought played fine together. Then you had Conchar, Aldama, and Edey. Now, the absence of Brandon Clark made the bench look very, very weird. We've already gotten extremely shallow. I mean, we started the season extremely shallow. But the 5-man second unit that played together, it was essentially a summer league team or the Memphis Hustle plus Luke Kennard. It was Scottie Pippen Jr., Luke Kennard, Jay Claravia, Jalen Wells, and Jay Huff. By the way, did I bury the lead by not mentioning Jay Huff in the opening? Jay Huff had a monster game. Jay Huff, the International Paper Player of the Game. Congratulations. But you saw some weird lineups and also some weird rotation patterns because of these main 10 guys you were playing. They essentially did line changes. Every 5 to 6 minutes, they would swap everybody in and out. Now, they changed the starting lineup for the second half for the second straight preseason game. I don't know what this means. I would guess it's just them trying to get more looks at some different lineups. In the second half, Luke Kennard started instead of John Conchar. I think it's totally reasonable and fair in games that Ja Morant misses to start Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, and Luke Kennard. In a vacuum, those are three of your, or probably your three best guards outside of Ja Morant. So they tried that look instead of having John Conchar. Also, for the second straight preseason game, Zach Edey did not start the second half. Jay Huff got the second half start. Edey came off the bench, played with the bench units. That made the bench units Scottie Pippen Jr., Jalen Wells, John Conchar, Jake LaRavia, and Zach Edey. Now, the overall story of the game, and Taylor Jenkins mentioned this post-game, he didn't feel like their energy was up, which frankly is a thing coaches say after your team loses. He thought the pace wasn't quite good enough. Of course, the defense was not good enough. The point of attack defense, not very good. They couldn't keep Miles Bridges out of the lane. Trey Mann was destroying everyone. And then on the offensive end, the shooting wasn't ideal, but also the ball security wasn't very good. They finished with 22 turnovers against 23 assists. That's awful. In the second half, they had 9 assists and 14 turnovers, which frankly is appalling. Some of the turnover issues, we're going to point to Scottie Pippen Jr. Scottie Pippen Jr. turned the ball over twice in like a 20-second span. They challenged the second turnover. It was a charging foul, but it stood up after replay review. Santi Aldama, who shot the ball pretty well, he turned the basketball over 4 times. A lot of these turnovers, I think, were specifically because they were trying to push the pace. That's the good and the bad. You would see guys driving into the paint, committing offensive fouls. They would turn the basketball over while pushing the pace, trying to pass out of the lane. And as far as the new offense, I still can't give you that much analysis after 2 games. The most notable thing is the fact that they are pushing the pace. But again, they've always focused on that. They've always tried to do it. They did a good job, it seems like, getting the ball across half court, usually with like 21 seconds still on the shot clock. That's good. You had multiple backdoor cuts for layups. That's slightly different than last year. They are emphasizing those cuts. You saw Jay Huff hit a guy for a backdoor layup. The post players, whenever they get it in the paint, the guys in the corners, I think, are supposed to cut baseline. So that's occurring. Now, some negative things about it, as far as I can tell, it seemed like they were passing out of the paint too much. You had guys beating their men, getting into the lane. It looks like they had scoring opportunities in the paint, and then they would just spray the ball out to the perimeter again, seemingly negating the advantage they'd created. Once the ball went back out to the three-point line, there were not open looks, and it allowed the defense to reset. So maybe the balance of three-point shooting versus paint scoring didn't seem ideal. Now, meanwhile, the Hornets had 50 points in the paint and also made 18 threes. That's a good balance for them. Maybe this will look different, and of course it will look different when Ja Morant and Desmond Bane are the primary guys getting the lane. Those guys have maybe more skills to finish in the paint versus the guys who were doing it in this game. One also thing about the new offense, and this goes to the performance of Zach Edey, and let's have a little moment for Zach Edey here. I, frankly, am a little bit concerned about Zach Edey. Just been 2 preseason games. Maybe it's no big deal. I would say my worry level, it's getting pretty high. What I mean by that, I think we're depending on Zach Edey a lot, obviously. That was the offseason move. We drafted our starting center. I have said many times something similar to, on the low end, he should be able to be like Jonas Valanciunas, which is a very optimistic thing. After 2 preseason games, he is not Jonas Valanciunas. He's not that good yet. And I find that a little bit terrifying. Now, I'm no Zach Edey expert. Lots of you are extremely optimistic and have watched Zach Edey throughout his entire college career. You know him way better than I do. Those of you who listen to my show regularly know I don't watch college basketball. I don't pretend to know about the draft picks. I read about them. I try to find out what the draft experts are saying about the guys. Draft experts, remember, we're not that into Zach Edey. And then when the Grizzlies draft him, all of a sudden there seemed to be this shift of like, oh, we're very optimistic about Zach Edey. And then he had that great summer league game against Utah. And it's like, okay, I see the vision. And then he had one quarter against the Pelicans in Vegas Summer League. And again, it looked pretty good. Now we've seen 2 preseason games. And it's not bad. But it's not like, oh yeah, that's clearly a starting center in the NBA. He looks clumsy when he has the basketball. He does not finish with strength when people are around him. Now, he's had some big dunks, some impressive dunks where he's really high up in the air, but those have mostly been where he's unguarded. He did a great job changing into the court. Santi Aldama found him for an open dunk in this one. Desmond Bane assisted him for an open dunk when Edey's man came and helped off. But when Zach Edey has gotten the ball and defenders are near him, so far it has not looked very good. He has, again, been clumsy are the words I would describe it. He hasn't made a post move yet. He's attempted right-handed hooks. That's not really a post move. I mean, it works. He scored this year on the rookie, can't remember his name, the real tall kid from Western Kentucky. So far this year, when he's posted up Dwight Powell and Nick Richards, he hasn't scored. Also, and this goes to the coaching staff, and this goes to the new offense, he's not involved in very many screening actions. He's not setting ball screens. And I know, or at least my understanding is, the new offense doesn't emphasize pick and rolls. It wants to be a read and react situation. It wants the ball handlers to create advantages and then all the other players to be constantly moving and freeing themselves up for layups. We saw it work with these back cuts. We've seen some of it work. But meanwhile, you have Zach Edey, who, by the way, is a tremendous screener. And so part of me is thinking, wait a minute, why are we running this fancy offense? You're telling me it's going to be better than Zach Edey setting 20 screens for Ja Morant? Zach Edey screening for Ja Morant is going to be awesome. So like in this game, I was kind of watching. Does he ever set a screen? They ran a play for him. He ran a pick and roll with Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart hit him in front of the bucket. Unfortunately, Nick Richards blocked Edey's dunk. But they're not even screening much with Zach Edey, allowing him to do pick and roll. Also, I'm not seeing any passing from Zach Edey so far, really. So because of all of that, I'll say, frankly, rather concerned. Just 2 preseason games. You should tell me to chill out. I'm not panicking, but I'm not like, oh yeah, that guy's going to win Rookie of the Year. He does not look like the favorite for Rookie of the Year after 2 games. First game, he had 6 points, I think. This game, he had 10 points. He was 2 out of 8 from the field. One of those is a heave. I don't count that one. 2 for 7 from the field. Took a couple of 3-pointers. One above the break was wide open, looked pretty good, came up just short. Then he airballed a corner 3-pointer. He hasn't made any shots outside of the paint, which is no big deal, but I kind of hoped he would have that ability. His only made non-dunk shot was that short hook he made over Jamarian Sharp. Now, he's a rookie, 2 games in, but I think the bill of goods I felt like I was offered or sold was this guy's NBA ready, the most NBA ready guy. 4 years of college. He's already old. He's developed. He has a huge physical advantage over guys. And I'm not seeing it yet. And he hasn't even played the good centers in the NBA so far. I wanted him to be pushing guys totally out of the way, being physically superior immediately. Some rookies, they pop immediately when you see them. I mean, he's no Ja Morant, but think back to Ja Morant's first preseason game. We were crying with joy after 1 preseason game. We were like, this guy might be amazing. He is amazing, turns out. So far for Zach Edey, it's like, that's a big guy. I kind of hoped he would look clearly better than Boban Marjanovic after 2 games. He doesn't. So I know it's an unpopular thing to say, but right now I'm worried. It has not been a very impressive first couple of games from Zach Edey. He looks more like the guy that people were saying should be a later lottery to later in the first round pick, as opposed to someone who the Grizzlies are like, this is the guy who's going to step in and start for us as we compete for home court advantage. He's going to do all the things Steven Adams did. So far, that's not close to the case. Now, he did have a good moment early in the game. He blocked a Miles Bridges shot. He blocked shots the first preseason game against the Mavericks. He is huge. He's not getting totally lost on defense. I'm just saying, if you set the expectation at, hey, he's going to be rookie of the year, and immediately he's going to have the impact of some of these like proven veteran NBA centers, it's not there yet. Could the team do a better job of getting him involved? I guess. I mean, there was some talk about, Ja Morant saw moments where he was sealing his man and they couldn't get him the ball, or that they just didn't find him at the right moments. But I don't know. Right now, physically, the way he's moving on the court, the way he is not really able to score in traffic the way I would like, I have not been that encouraged. Now, let's run through the rest of the guys who played. I mean, Desmond Bane just did Desmond Bane things, scored 17 points, had a very nice game. Always with the off-the-ball movement for Desmond. It's a big part of why the Grizzlies offense has looked okay and not just totally putrid. Marcus Smart, of course, that's a big story. He left this game with a knee injury. Not ideal. He said it's just probably going to be bruised. If it was a regular season game, he would keep playing. Okay, I sort of believe you, but I'm scarred from all the Grizzlies' injury issues, and specifically Marcus Smart has injury problems his entire career. So, again, not ideal as another veteran Grizzly player goes down. Now, Aldama, I said his three-point shooting, it was good in this one. All of his field goal attempts were three-pointers. He was 3 out of 7 on those. Also picked up 5 assists. That was nice to see. I think the Grizzlies are really going to depend on Santi Aldama's shooting. It's been subpar so far in his career, but if he can make mid-30s, 37% or so, if he makes 3 out of 7 on average, that's going to be a needed, important boost for this Grizzlies team. Let's talk a little about Jay Huff's game. Again, player of the game. Jay Huff had 15 points. He made 3 of the Grizzlies' 8 3-pointers that they hit as a team in the first half. Finished with 4 made 3-pointers. If this was a regular season game, that would have been a career high in made threes and a career high in points for Jay Huff. Also got 3 blocks. Jay Huff looked incredible out there. He also played power forward in the fourth quarter. They had Zach Edey and Jay Huff, Twin Towers lineups, because we're so shorthanded. We can't play any other guys. I mean, Jalen Wells, I think, played minutes at the 4. You'd probably say he played minutes at the 4. On that second unit, he came in for Santi Aldama. Jake LaRavia subbed in for John Conchar in the first quarter, and then when Aldama came out, Jalen Wells came in. So maybe it doesn't really matter who's the 4 between LaRavia and Wells, but we played smallish where one of those 2 guys counts as your power forward. Jalen had not an ideal game. He made some plays. He had a good driving layup where I was happy to see him using his body to shield the defender off, and he finished that one. He hit a couple of 3-pointers. He had 1 3-pointer wiped away by an incorrect call. He kicked out after he landed. Now, referee defender Keith would say Jalen Wells played referee roulette. He stuck his foot out after he landed, tripping Taj Gibson. I think the official correctly called that a foul. Now, where they messed up, the officials messed up, it was after he had landed. So the basket should have been good, then a foul on Jalen Wells, but the officials called the foul on Jalen Wells for the kick out and wiped the basket off. Referee mistake, but also Jalen Wells played referee roulette and lost. If you try to trick the refs, sometimes you lose. But Jalen, the good things, the driving layup, hitting a couple of jumpers. The bad things, not a great shooting percentage, which is maybe underselling it. 4 out of 12 from the field. Also very aggressive, I guess is the good way to put it. He shoots a lot. He's put up the most shots, I think, of anybody besides Desmond Bane so far in the preseason. And also, when I go back to like Zach Edey looking a little clumsy and not strong with the ball, Jalen Wells had a play where he had his defender on his back in the paint, Charlie Brown Jr. for the Hornets, and Jalen Wells did not look like an NBA player at this moment. He pump faked, got the ball stripped. He, again, had his man sealed. Seems like he could rise up for just a layup, but had his shot eventually blocked and then had the ball stolen from him. And that was like an eye-opener. It's one of those just really gaudy plays where you're like, that didn't look like a guy with the finishing ability or the NBA moves that you'd expect. Now, he's a second-round pick, so it's no big deal. Rookie, learning how to play. But again, that is one of our main roster guys. That's one of our healthy, main roster, standard contract guys. We need him to contribute. And yes, the jumper looks good, but the overall floor game still leaves a lot to be desired. Now, Luke Kennard had 5 points, made 1 out of 4 3-pointers, had 0 assists. Scottie Pippen Jr. finished with 5 assists, had 9 points, 4 boards. I mean, maybe I picked too much on the 3 turnovers that he had. Still a pretty solid game. Scottie Pippen Jr. seems very, very solid. I have a lot of confidence in him playing. Jake LaRavia had a letdown of a game, just 1 out of 6 from the field. 3 points, did have 3 assists. The deeper bench got in the fourth quarter. I don't have much to say about him. I mean, the Grizzlies got roasted in the fourth quarter. The Grizzlies only scored 39 points combined in the second and third quarters, so that's not ideal. That's when a lot of your regular players were playing. Then in the fourth quarter, the Hornets blew it out to like a 25-point lead before walking away with a comfortable victory. Yuki Kawamura, fan favorite, did not score in his 9 minutes, missed all 4 of his field goal attempts. Majina Pereira also did not score in his 7 minutes. Mie One did not score. So those guys played a combined, 23 scoreless minutes. Overall, it's just a preseason game where you're very shorthanded. But I'll say the huge issues for this Grizzlies team, and I'm going to get more into this in a second, in a future episode, not today. I'm going to shut this episode down. But the biggest concerns for the Grizzlies, these are not deep cuts. Everyone knows this. First and foremost, it's just health. And every team has health concerns, but I think the Grizzlies' health concerns are more pronounced than other teams. Can Ja Morant play 70 games? Can Jaren Jackson Jr. play 70 games? Can Marcus Smart play, what are we hoping for, 65? Can Desmond Bane play 70 games? Can Brandon Clark be available? Brandon Clark missing the second preseason game with a sore knee is deeply concerning. He's never been a guy who is that sturdy. He's always missed random games here and there. For years, we always talked about maybe he can only play 20 minutes per game. Maybe that's the max his body can handle. That's why he doesn't play more. And then him coming off the Achilles injury, you're a little bit worried, I think. Just when he sits out a preseason game, you're just worried because we have PTSD from Grizzlies years past. And you look at the front court, and it's like, oh, if Brandon Clark doesn't play, we're running Jay Huff out there. I mean, maybe Jay Huff's just incredible. Maybe it's good when Jay Huff plays. But we're already playing Jay Huff in first quarters of games because there's no Jaren, who they expect to have for opening night, so maybe it's no big deal. There's no Brandon Clark out with a sore knee. We're already at play Jay Huff. That's where the rotation is. Or that's where the bench is, the depth is. So the injuries, I think, are a huge concern for the Grizzlies. Beyond that, the concerns are, is Zach Edey ready to contribute? I think contribute, yes. Shine, be an above-average NBA center or NBA starting center, which I think is exactly what you need. No, I don't think we're there yet, and I'm worried about getting there. Then beyond that's the three-point shooting, just team three-point shooting overall. Ja and Marcus and Jaren, the last 4 seasons, those guys combined are like 32% from the three-point line. Santi Aldama, a lot depends on him making three-pointers. I'm worried about what the ceiling is for a team that might shoot 35% from the three-point line. The only team last year that was any good that shot under league average was the Magic. I think the Grizzlies can replicate that. I think the Grizzlies can have as good of a defense as the Magic had last year and shoot 35% from the three-point line, which would be a massive improvement over last year for the Grizzlies, and then still be a playoff team. But of course, the Magic didn't win a playoff series. The worst three-point shooting team to win a playoff series last year, it was the Cavaliers. And they beat the Magic, the only playoff team with a worse three-point shooting percentage. So I am very worried about the team's three-point shooting too overall. So I didn't mean to end this on a downer. Preseason loss is absolutely meaningless. Who cares? But I was a little bit let down by Zach Edey, and I have now let my concerns over the other things kind of get carried away. Maybe when I see Ja and Jaren back on the court, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is the awesome Grizzlies team. My worries have been assuaged, but right now, that was not the most comforting preseason game. So, didn't mean to leave you on a downer, but I guess I will. Anyways, I look forward to all the negative comments on the YouTube page. If you guys want to support this program, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Come play fantasy basketball with me. If you're already a Patreon supporter, sign up for the fantasy leagues. It's time. Patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.